Hello all and welcome back to Sky Factory 4 episode 12. This is Mord. This episode we're going to be getting into NuclearCraft reactors and trying to get our 24 by 24 by 24 reactor online and fuel automated, so this will be a significant upgrade for our power setup. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, we ask that you do that. It'll help you follow along, it'll help us know that you're watching, but otherwise we're going to get into things. I've got my rest of my seeds now spread out. We've got a few spots here. So what I'm doing with my less needed seeds and some of the more basic ones is I've set up a little 3x3 for each one. So we've got dirt, and water, all those ones we looked at last time. And I've left a few spots. I also added graphite because we're going to need that for NuclearCraft. And we had a way to get to graphite ingots, but these are faster for autocrafting to use these in the recipe as opposed to using the typical grind it up and then smelt it. So it takes two steps. These are one step to get to ingots, and we're going to have to create graphite blocks for the reactor setup. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go down 24 blocks from here, and I'm basically going to set it up underneath our lab, and I'll just have two reactors because I think there are two that are needed. Let's take a look here real quick. I actually had this book reset on me, but the ones we're looking at getting to are we want to be able to create this 24 by 24 by 24, and then there's also a 24 fusion reactor, which I think is a different mod. So we might be looking at doing both of these. I know these two will get covered. This may also be covered. I'm not sure. We'll have to look and see. And actually, that's pretty big. We'll have to see how that goes. And we will come back and get that stuff together. We do have the recipes in place for building the reactor casings, and it's going to take quite a few. So let's we'll kick those off, and we'll show what that looks like. Okay, let's do a review of the blocks and items required to build a NuclearCraft fission reactor. As you can see, there's quite a few, and there's even more than this, but let's go over this for now because this will get the casing and interior done. This is a magnesium diboride solenoid, which we just set up that alloy, this magnesium diboride last time with the alloy furnace, and now we can autocraft these. This is an advanced plating, which we just take our basic plating, which we talked about when we created our NuclearCraft machines probably 3 or 4 episodes ago, but it's fairly straightforward, and I've got it in my ME system. Surrounded by tough alloy and redstone. This is a nuclear furnace, which is part of the controller block. I haven't actually used this block for anything, but this is the recipe for it, and this will probably do some quick smelting, but we're already using our Mekanism machines to do that. This is the machine chassis. It's a NuclearCraft item, lead, steel, and tough alloy. And then that all comes together to make the controller block, which you can see our advanced platings, solenoids, furnace, and then a chassis in the middle. We'll go ahead and make that block because we're going to need it. This is the fission reactor casing. This makes up the outer walls. This needs to be 24 by 24 on 6 sides, so we need a lot of these. Somewhere around, it's around 500 a wall. The actual number is 576 per wall, and so we're going to need somewhere around, let's see, 3,456 of those if we don't have to do the corners. We'll have to look at that. This is a transparent version. It's the same thing except for you can see through it. So we may put some of these in just to put some visual interest because it's going to be a massive wall of casings. So we might put some of these in there. This is an empty cooler. We're going to be using these inside the reactor to keep it cool and keep it from melting down. There are different types. We're going to be using the water cooler, the quartz cooler, blocks crushed quartz around an empty cooler. This is the magnesium cooler. And if you look at these, you can see that they each have a requirement. Like this needs to be back next to a reactor casing and a moderator block. This is the glowstone cooler. And this needs to be adjacent to 2 moderator blocks. This is the Lapis cooler. And see, it has to be a reactor cell and a reactor casing. So depending on where we put it, we're gonna have to locate different coolers next to it. It's basically how it works. And then this one is a redstone cooler. It needs to be adjacent to 1 reactor cell. And then one more block we're going to show off before we do that is the reactor cell itself. This is where the fuel actually ends up. So this is the middle of the stack, and we have to surround this with coolers and moderator blocks, which the moderator block we're going to be using, I think, is the graphite block. I didn't really put it in here because it's just like any other block. You just take your graphite ingots, which we're getting from our seeds, and this is a fission reactor moderator, so this has to go adjacent to reactor cells. We'll be setting that layout up when we set everything up. But for now, we're going to craft everything and get these in the scale that we need them, which is going to be quite a few of these. And we'll go ahead with our reactor design. All right, and as you can see, we have 2,456 of these things generating. We need like 3,500 or something total for the entire casing. And you can see how the crafting process is going. It speeds things up quite a bit to not have to do this manually. So once we get all these built up, I'll be coming back so we can actually build the casing for the reactor. Okay, I'm setting up the 24 by 24 by 24. I have all the blocks out, and one great tool for that, if you're going to be doing it, is this tape measure block. I haven't done the recipe, but it's really easy. It's a couple string and 3 iron and a yellow dye, yellow flour, whatever it is for that. And then all you have to do is hold right click, and you can measure out blocks, which is really nice, and then let go, and it'll keep it there. So I've used that to measure all this out. I'm going to get my blocks together to build the casings, and we'll be right back. All right, we're ready to start building. We're going to build, this is a 24 by 24 square. It's going to go straight down from here. Let's go ahead. I've also got fission reactor casing selected, and the mode is cube solid like we did with the growth accelerators. And that handles the top, so that's a 24 by 24. I'm going to use my areas down here to select another side. All right, and here we are with side number 2. There it goes. This thing has a ton of energy on it too. We'll confirm the coordinates on it real quick with the, I dropped the tape measure in, but let's try to do the other sides now as well. All right, and you can see we can confirm with the tape measure. It is 24 blocks by 23 and 12. I don't know what that must be bits. I'm not real sure, but that's not all the way to the bottom, so that's going to be also 24. So 24 by 24, that confirms that. Let's go ahead and set up our next edge. Come down here. Same thing. Sure makes building easy. And we'll set up our other 2. All right, I skipped the other 2 walls because it was more the same, but I did have to use some clear casings on this side just because that's what I made. I might actually vary this up some, but it is kind of cool that the entire side is clear and the bottom is clear. Like I put the bottom in as clear as well. So I did place the controller up here, and we can see now that if we look here, that the it's a 24 by 24 by 24 fission reactor. We have to still build the inside, and if we break this, let's see. Yeah, see that shows that the casing is broken, so we do know that it's a valid casing. And we'll put this right up here, and I will come back and we'll start working on the inside with setting up a reactor door, and we'll get the coolers set up around the fuel cells. Okay guys, here we are, and let's go ahead and build our first piece of the reactor. So this can get very complicated or fairly simple depending on how you look at it, right? So we're going to use a limited number of coolers, but you can really optimize these, and you could even take them up. Like if you look at cooler, you can even take them up to these active fluid coolers, which basically triple or quadruple the cooling of one of these. So like if you have liquid redstone, you can pump it into this active fluid cooler through a block called the buffer, and it will actually pump fluid into the reactor and into those active fluid coolers and give you much better cooling. But we're going to aim just for the lower fuels because it should be enough to meet our goals here. And really we're going to focus on 2 or 3 types of coolers. If we look at our Lapis cooler, it has to be adjacent to a casing and a cell. So we're going to put anything near the reactor casing with a Lapis cooler next to the cells. The Magnesium cooler must be next to a casing and a moderator block, which is one of these graphite blocks. So these are the reactor cells. and these are the graphite blocks. And you want the reactor cells and the graphite blocks to be adjacent to each other because they have good synergy. So it makes them much more efficient if there's a reactor cell, then a graphite block, then a reactor cell, then a graphite block. And I'll show you that. And then for the inside, we're going to use quartz coolers, which will be adjacent to a moderator block. And we're going to use redstone coolers, which must be adjacent to a reactor cell. And then in the middle, we're going to put a glowstone cooler because it needs to be next to 2 moderator blocks. And I'll show you why that is. So let's go in. And I also added an augment to my helmet that is night vision, which should make it much easier to see. So let's turn those lights on. And another thing about this helmet is if you do want it to not break on you, you have to get it to where it's unbreakable. So I did put an embossment and 5 levels of reinforced on it, so it's unbreakable, so I have infinite night vision. Just for your benefit, so you can see what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to build 1 stack, and I'm going to take a stack of cells, and I'm going to take a stack of graphite blocks as moderators, and I'm going to space them like this. And then I'm going to take my graphite blocks and make it where they're adjacent, like that. See, so now we've got reactors and we've got adjacent graphite. Now, we're going to do that all the way to the ceiling, but I'm going to use my, my building wand to do that. So I've got the graphite and I've got the reactor cells. So now these ones that are by the casing, we want to use our Lapis coolers. So I'm going to take my Lapis cooler and put it between the casing and the reactor cells. See, so since that's a reactor cell and 1 reactor casing, that meets that criteria. And we're also going to take our magnesium and we're going to put that next to the graphite blocks. Oops. Let me get that broken. And the reactor cells. So if it's touching the wall, any outer wall, we're going to do like that. The inner walls, we're just going to use a redstone cooler on all the reactor cells because they must touch 1 reactor cell. So we'll do that. And then we're going to use quartz coolers on the graphite blocks because they have to touch a moderator block. So, and those are active. And any cell is going to automatically take fuel and burn. So it'll be active as long as we're feeding fuel into it through one of the ports or through the reactor casing block or the reactor controller. So that'll be fine. And in the middle, since we have 2 adjacent moderator blocks, or must be adjacent to 2 moderator blocks, we're going to throw a glowstone cooler. It's got good cooling, and that's going to be the only place in our stack that it actually meets that criteria. And there are other coolers we can use, but for now, that's going to be our setup just to keep it sort of simple. And we can take that and tile it to the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to copy. I'm going to click this corner. I'm going to click this corner. I'm going to hold right click. I didn't say it was copied. Let me hold right click. Okay. And then I'm going to switch to paste. And then I'm going to go paste. Hopefully it lets me. There we go. Paste. Same thing. Select. Paste. Nice. And then what we can do is take our secondary selection on copy. Well, let's take our first selection. And then we can copy 3. Area copied. Switch to paste. And you can see where it's going to paste. This is really one place this wand really shines. There we go. We're going all the way up. Until we run out of blocks. Whoop, 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 whoop. I like that noise. Nice. And one really nice thing about this, except for the Lapis blocks, we could just copy and paste this over and over again. Alright. Alright, we're in. It's all done. So that is a 1 stack of reactor cells surrounded by coolers. We could do some magic on the bottom to make those coolers a little more efficient, but this will be fine for TBU fuel. And we'll just tile that, right, as we go through here. And we're not going to exactly touch the walls over there, so we'll get it where, you know, this back wall is got Lapis along the back wall. And then we might just copy and paste an all redstone version of that. and just do it over and over again as we need it. But for now, that will get us started. And if you look at it, we now should have, not in our port, in our controller, we have negative 32,880 heat. That looks really good. We do need to now work on some fuel. So I'm going to get together what we need to create, well, there's a couple of them, but I'm going to start with the TBU fuel. This right here. And that's going to be thorium-232. And what we need to do is we need to get an isotope separator to get those created out of our thorium that we set up in our farm. So I'm going to get the stuff together for that, and I'll be back and we'll start making fuel. All right, we've got a couple recipes to review, and then we'll be ready to get some fuel going. This is the electric motor. It's NuclearCraft's, it's just a component. We don't really use it for anything, but we do use it for the isotope separator, which is what I just talked about. It's basic plating, redstone, machine chassis, and that electric motor we just talked about. We're going to need that. And this is also a reactor port. I don't think that we actually got into these because we ran out of room in our crafting grid here, but solenoid, hopper, and fission reactor casing, these are used to bring power, and I believe we can even feed fuel into these. I think we can do this to get power and inventory. So we should be able to feed fuel in, we should be able to get items out, and we should be able to get power out of those blocks. So let's go ahead and set up our isotope separator, and we're going to need a couple things. So on our side configuration, our output, hopefully that works. It just doesn't import bus with the isotope separator. I'm really hoping that will work out. And we need also an interface. Okay, so I've got everything we need. So we're going to have to take our interface, we'll put it on top. I'm going to go ahead and run some cabling here just in case we need it. Craft our interface. And I don't remember exactly what thorium turns into, so let's take a look and see what it actually does separate into. And I've also got speed upgrades and energy upgrades for this machine to make it much quicker. So one thorium-232 and one tiny clump of thorium-230, it looks like. So let's go ahead and get patterns created for that. So let's go to a processing pattern, which we have. We'll take one thorium, and we will make a 232 and a tiny clump of thorium-230. Okay, so we'll encode that, and I will put that in the interface on top. All right, let's test it with the speed upgrades. So let's look at our thorium. I'm going to craft 10 of these, which will also craft 10 of those, which is good. And we should see them come in pretty... Oh, you know what? Yeah, I think it did craft it, so that's good. And then those get pulled in. Right, so then we get our thorium-230 and our thorium-232. Now we want to look at uses on those. There's TBU fuel there. What about the tiny one? Let's take a look at that one and see what it can be used for. It can make an isotope of 230, and 230 can be used... I thought there was a fuel that could be used on that, but no. Okay, so what we need to do for now is we'll take this, and we'll make our TBU fuel out of that. So let's also create a pattern for that. This is going to be a crafting pattern. We'll take our thorium-232. We'll encode that. We'll go stick it in our molecular assembler here. So now we can make our TBU fuel. And we need to take an export bus and a crafting card. And a couple acceleration cards. Okay, and what we'll do is we come down to our reactor setup, and I have a port put in this corner. So what I'm going to do is run our cabling down, and we'll take our export bus, we'll put it here. We'll take our crafting card, we'll put it here. Take our acceleration card, put it there. And now I don't think this will turn on because this doesn't have a redstone signal. I did move this to this corner, and I did it on purpose because I'm going to be measuring the heat output of this so it doesn't melt down on us. I'm going to make a little TBU fuel before I actually put it in there. So TBU should be an option. We'll craft, let's say, 10 of these for testing. All right, 10 are done. And let's go down and see what this thing does with heat. I think it'll handle this fine without overheating. We need one more thing. Okay, I've grabbed a few redstone goodies as well because I want to go ahead and set up a safety for heat on this, because you just never know if this is going to get too hot with our testing. So what you need to do is go to your controller block and set a comparator out of it. And what it does is it measures the heat and increases the signal strength. So you just need to run a redstone run and give it a few blocks for the signal to travel, because you don't want it to be so quick that the moment it starts to heat up, it turns off. And then we'll just put a redstone torch right here. So it's going to be on, and what the controller requires is it requires a redstone signal for the reactor to start up, right? So if there's no fuel in it, it's not going to run. But now if we overheat, or we put too big of a fuel in there, instead of overheating and melting down, it'll shut down the reactor when the heat gets too high. So it's a good way to put like a safety catch in there to make sure your reactor doesn't overheat. So we do have our test fuel here. Let's try it. I'm going to try a single piece and just see what we get out of it. So if I put that in, we are just barely in the positive with heat, with TBU. So in order to get more on that, we are getting 37,000 RF per tick. That's pretty nice. And I just got gone fission, which is also nice. And that is going to last quite a while. So what we'll do is we'll put these in the export bus to allow these to build, and then we can continue to scale this out to increase the speed that this actually goes through a piece of fuel, right? So one piece of fuel is just generating in those, but if we get enough reactor cells to like fill this room up, it's going to go through a TBU cell really, really quick, right? So that's perfect. So what we need to do is also set this export bus to make TBU cells. So we'll do that, and they should start crafting, and it will fill up. And the other thing we need to do is we need to set this. We should see, there it went. So another TBU fuel went in there. Very nice. It is filling up. Now, the other thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to set up a power monitor on it. And I've got a few different ways we can do that. I need to get everything together for that. But for now, this is running. It is exporting them. And we are full, and we're generating power. So now we'll have to tap into the power, and we'll also have to put a power monitor on it to make sure that we're not generating fuel when we don't need to. And I also need to pull the depleted fuel out. So I'll probably get an import bus to pull this in. And for now, that'll at least get us basic power coming through a fission reactor. So let me get set up for the power monitor, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we have a solution for monitoring the power levels of the generator as well, or of the reactor. So Mekanism has these energy cubes, and we're going to go up the hierarchy of them real quick. So you have to make an energy tablet, which is the enriched alloy, gold, and redstone. And I've put all these in the ME system to speed it up. And then we have our steel casing, iron, redstone, and 2 tablets to go to basic. Then we put basic in the middle of osmium enriched alloy and energy tablets to go to advanced. And then we put advanced in the middle of gold, reinforced alloy, and energy tablets to go to elite. And then we take the atomic alloy, diamonds, and energy tablet around elite to get to ultimate. Okay, so that's the ultimate energy cube. And this has the feature that you can actually, as it fills up, you can get a comparator off of it and get a signal up to 15 blocks, depending on how the percentage that it's full. So what I want to do is I'm going to go underneath here, and I'm going to break a block. Oops, let's get where we can actually hold still. And there's our port. That was a good hit, actually. And what I'm going to do is put an energy extraction cable here, which will take the energy out. And then I'm going to ramp this up to 64,000, and then I'm going to put the energy cube on here, which you can see is already filling up. Okay, so now that's filling up. We're going to take our laboratory blocks, just something that we can measure 16 blocks with. Whoop. There we go. 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, there's no power there. So we're one short. Let me see if I can shorten this. Alright, that will shut off the reactor. Oh, actually, hang on. It does actually look like that's activating off of power too. I thought it was just heat, but there is no heat coming off of it. So I'm pretty sure it will shut them down for both, which is nice. But we can also do it with this battery buffer, right? So that'll make it where we can do the same sort of thing, where we just basically make the run a little bit longer. We might be able to take this off of this side and get a little bit shorter of a run, or actually just get one more link to the run. That would be another way we could achieve it. But that's going to be basically full before it turns it off. So what that lets us do is then we can take a Flux Point or plug, and I should be able to put it on here and add it to our RF network. We'll put it on RF. And I believe that should pull in power from that. We'll have to check on that and see, but that should make it where our reactor is feeding into our wireless network, and then we have power coming up. We also have overheat protection, and we should be full on fuel. So what's going to happen is, oh, I do actually need to extract the depleted fuel too. So let me get a ME import bus. Okay, now I don't know for sure if it's going to pull these out if we do an import bus, so I'm going to take this so I can filter it just to be sure. And I'll put it on the top of this right here. We'll run some cable to it, and we will add the depleted TBU fuel to it. We might have to add more to that with a capacity card, but that should work. And as these burn and get depleted fuels, those should be sucked into the ME system, and we can use these in a fuel reprocessor to get uranium and neptunium, right? And these can be used to make more powerful fuels. So we probably will end up playing around with that later on. Maybe it just depends, because we've already hit our goal with the advancements. So I don't really know that we need to play with this anymore, just that we need it for the power, right? So if we look at the book and we look at the Age of All Things, we've got the 2 fission generator advancements here. So we probably won't do any more with it. This is the fusion reactor, which we might play around with next. We really don't need it for power, but we do need it for advancement, so we may look at that next. But right now, we basically have everything we need for fission reactors and all the power we're going to need. So we'll probably move on to something else next. We might look into... So I think probably what we'll end up doing next is we'll probably start working towards getting some of these Age of All the Things OMG LOL advancements, just because we're to the point now where we can start getting that kind of volume. We do need to upgrade our mulches, so I might start working on the machines to get up to blue mulch, and then once we do that, we'll start getting things for like these singularities, and we are going to have to do resource hogs, which I don't really want it like a long-term resource hog setup. I'm not really interested in maintaining that. I don't like how much room it's going to take up, so I probably won't do it. But I will at least set it up where we have the resource hogs of every type and every truffle, and we can see where we can go from there. There are lots of options, so maybe we'll start on that next. Well, guys, I'm taking a look at the playtime, and we are pretty close to out of time. So we're just going to wrap up this episode here. We did get our NuclearCraft fission reactor up and running. We got some safety measures in place. We got the full power check in place to make sure it turns it off, and everything is nice and functional, and something we can also tile and expand as we need to. So thank you for tuning in. Next time, we'll probably start looking into some of the bigger achievements, getting our mulch upgraded. We got lots to do. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.